So with this non-payment, the sum that is not being paid, of course, is a very stressful thing, you see. So late payment is very stressful. Non-payment is even more stressful. Underpayment is equally stressful because you're actually affecting the final sum, you see, of the expenses or that particular through many payment certificates. They're not being paid according to the payment certificates. So, well, of course, the solution will always be suspension of work or termination of the contract, because it is the right, you have the right in a contract to be paid. The contractor has a right to be paid. So that means actually the client has breached the contract. But unfortunately, most of the contract does not really specify how to deal with late payment and how to deal with underpayment and non-payment. So it will actually still end up, it is a breach to the duty actually. So then it will always, because the contract does not specify that properly, so it may be needing to be handled outside the contract through dispute resolution, through courts, through suing of the contractor, but through first action suspension and then later on termination. So for suspension of performance means a suspension of work. It means the unpaid party will have to write, to the defaulting people and say that, I need to suspend my work. I have no money to work anymore, you see. But you see, suspension of work actually will hold the work. And then later on, let's say he pays you, and then you continue to work, and then you run into a delay. How is that going to be handled? So, but the delay is going to be delayed. Under the delay EOT part, there's no such thing as non-payment, you see. So it's very, very tricky, very tricky here, very sneaky. So you may end up paying huge amount of LAD. It might as well don't be paid, you see. So when you talk about circumstances, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of notice that needs to be served, continuous notice, continuous warning letters, claims. You have to continue to claim. You may start to slow down your work, but you cannot you cannot just stop your work on site completely. And then put everything up for negotiation. And the best is to maybe serve a legal letter and all that, and start that process. You must properly start the process of suspension of work by not immediately suspending, but it has to be over a period of time. Okay, so I can say at least 7 days, but it must be actually 7 days probably will not be enough. So it will be like at least, it has to be over a period of time. But after suspension can be like when you plan to suspend after you give a lot of notice, it can be 7 days before the suspension takes place. Okay, but again, this is dependent on the contract. So if there's anything on suspension of leave, some contracts have suspension. Okay, and usually a suspension of work, and then you penalize the contractor for suspending the work. That is usually the case. So I mean, it is very sad, and that's why I love to be in this area of contract management, because I feel like industry needs to have better contracts. They need to have, in order to be long lasting, in order to be healthy for the industry, whether you're in manufacturing or whether you're in service providing or whether you're in telecommunication, whether you're in construction. It is very important that a contract is fair and just and is actually addressing as much issues as possible. To resolve those issues. It's a way to resolve issues, not the way to, bring more benefit to yourself and, make people on the losing side. So that is the spirit of contract. So I actually appreciate the spirit of contract, but I know that the contract now that is in the industry actually look really bad. As much as possible to either avoid talking about things that are unfair to them, and that may be disadvantaging them, but it's okay to be unfair to another person. It's the kind of spirit that we're actually having in terms of contracting. So, I mean, this will bring up a lot of discussion issues and all that. I'm sure a lot of you have actually gone through that as well. See, and like I said, suspension and suspension and termination is not as straightforward, especially termination later. And there will be a lot of, things that you need to go through. But at the end of the day, if you're not being paid or not being paid on time or not being paid at all or underpaid, all this is actually at the initial stage, it will be a huge disadvantage to the contractor. And you will realize that, everything else will be affected, and including the client themselves, it will be affected if the contractor is in terrible cash flow situation. Right. So I would really suggest that, these are probably, especially come to the final point where you're actually dealing with teacher suspension, bring in legal personnel. Don't just do it on site, just like that, And then, like I said, there may be twists and loopholes that you may end up paying LAD instead of you suspend or terminate, and then you end up not getting paid even more. You see, there are other clauses that support, the support delays and support losses and expenses and all that may be very huge disadvantage to you if you actually are suspending the work without enough of notice or without or termination of work. There must be certain manners of handling it, which we will speak about maybe in the third or fourth class later on. Okay, so the solution is that, but unfortunately it's not as simple. That's what I'm trying to say. So the best is everybody follow procedures lah. That one is more simple, isn't it? Make life easier for everybody. So what are the causes of payment issues? What are the causes of late payment? Client withholding law, client no money law, client bankrupt law, client cash flow problem law is very, very typical. And then maybe there are already site work conflict going on, and then another part that is paid by SO or contract administrator will be delay in certification. That is really, if this is engineer doing this, I will not engineer help. It's not supposed to delay in certification. Delay in payment, the client don't pay is their problem. You cannot delay in certification. That is not professional. And then, of course, delay in certification can be caused by disagreement with the valuation. Maybe there's technical issues. Maybe the contractor has not been cooperative. Maybe they bring in wrong materials. They bring in low quality of things. Or they themselves, the schedule is in delay. So there are many reasons why there are causes of payment, causes of late payment. So client withholding payment, that is very, very typical because they may feel like the contractor is not working properly. They themselves have problem. They may have financial issues, you see. And then there are also client withholding payment because they are disagreeable to the quality of work that is being done. But normally because the evaluation of work is actually done by the assessor already, a proper contract administrator like engineers, SO, architects, it's not supposed to have that issue. The amount is certified. You're supposed to respect that. See? So most of the time, client withholding is because of they serve their full financial issues. That does not mean that there are actually the contractor side is perfect, but there will probably situation be non-compliances as well, meaning that even though they are supposed to be paid this amount, but there are 1 or 2 points that are really non-compliances and the contractor are not being very helpful, or they're not being good about it, or they are really being very sneaky. So you get a bit scared, so you want to hold the payment or underpay them a little bit. So that could be the situation as well. But like I said, mostly because you have already got consultants or you've got assessors to assess it, you cannot say that you don't respect their professionalism in assessing. That assessment should have already included things that are not using. Okay. So yeah, they'll usually be intentional, that we should be intentional. And some people, they are actually corruption, because they want the contractor to think I am the certifier, or I am the client CFO. I want you to give me some gift before I release my payment. These are really, really very corrupted practices now.